Good morning, my family. Today's topic is based by a question one of our family community members had asked, and I think that was a really good question. It was about how to find my trigger foods. When I made my video about converting recipes and using substitutes in place, I did mention that you need to first find your trigger foods. What this actually means is find the foods that spike your sugar no matter how much you eat of it. For example, my husband was told that he could basically eat anything as long as it was in moderation. That advice is not exactly true. And remember, every diabetic is different. One of the examples is we were told that he could have whole wheat bread. And I used the recommended amount. I gave him one slice. It spiked his sugar up into the 200s. I gave him half. It still spiked his sugar. These are foods I call elimination. We are finding not everybody is being treated differently, or the same actually. Everybody is being treated different. Some people will get nutritionists that are absolutely fantastic, and other people are like us. A doctor will send you a pamphlet in the mail, and basically the foods that were listed on it is whole wheat, brown rice, things like this. And when I looked at these pamphlets, it made no sense to me. And a lot of us are left to do this on our own. Believe it or not, it's truth. So in that process, it was hard for me. And that was part of the reason I ended up doing the videos I'm doing, because I am a homesteader who had to learn how to do this. So what I learned is through the foods that trigger his blood sugar and spike them, I learned to play the elimination game and the substitution. So that takes time. Sometimes that could take a couple years. Honestly, you have to check your blood sugar every time. The best way to test is after you eat something. Between 1 to 2 hours after your last bite is the best way to tell, did this spike my sugar or not? Some things we did just directly those products. Some things we had to break down to figure it out. So that is what's called a trigger food. A few other things that I learned that might be helpful in real foods. And I'll explain why I started turning toward real foods instead of convenient foods. One prime example is I'm learning not everything on the market is safe. My husband, unfortunately, and many others, I can't deprive the man of a normal life. He does like his sweets. He's always been that way. And I can't say, well, I can look at him. Some people can give it up, like giving up soda and stuff, and I get that. But some people can't. And they like their food. I mean, there's a lot of foodies out here, so I'm not going to deprive the man. He actually likes some of his candy, and one of them were Reese's Pieces, and he found one that was sugar-free. Being labeled sugar-free clicked in his head, I can eat this and it's safe for me. Not necessarily true. Until I started learning about ingredients, we purchased this, and he ate the recommendation amount, leaving the rest to be saved for some other time. When he took his blood sugar after it had spiked him to nearly 300. Him and I both freaked out. And I started picking that package up, and I started reading in the ingredients, and one of them that was in that ingredient, I didn't know anything about. I mean, honestly, I'm learning about ingredients today that I've never heard of before. Basically, I never paid attention to it in our lifestyle before anyways. So when I started reading the ingredients, there was a particular area that I was concerned about, and it was called maltitol. So I started reading about it, and honestly, maltitol would have been better for me to give my husband a bowl of sugar, and that same comparison. So that was an ingredient we knew that was not safe for him as a diabetic. So I started figuring out ways to turn to real food so that I could accommodate and convert for him and substituting how he could have this but safe for him. What I figured out and what worked for me and for my husband was I took a jar of unsalted peanuts, just nothing but unsalted roasted peanuts. I put it through my food processor. I didn't add any oil to it. I let the process of the food processor break it down over time. When it heated up from the blade, it would create its own oil, and it made peanut butter. No sugar added, nothing, just straight peanut butter. And I would store it in my refrigerator. I then started looking into chocolates, dark chocolates, and I found Lindt's excellent 100% cacao. It worked. It made it where, and if I did use a sugar, I used a substitute sugar like monk fruit or something like that. And it wound up being so much better on his blood sugar in moderation than versus the sugar-free. I've even used Lily's chocolates, and so these worked. And this is how I learned how to convert and substitute. Some of the other products that I'm learning out here labeled keto isn't exactly great either. The products that are pretty much high in carbohydrates that accommodate it with high fiber, my revelation and experience into these folks are not so great either. Though it doesn't go straight to your blood sugar, over time, it doesn't exactly lower either. It rises. And it can rise throughout the entire day. And when you mix this with other meals, you're going in an up and down roller coaster. Your body's going through a lot. So I kind of am cautious about some of these keto foods out there as well. Another product that is just as bad as maltitol is maltodextrin. These products I try to steer clear from, and this was based by my husband's blood sugar, that it was driving us nuts. So I learned to do what I do with my trigger foods is total elimination. Now there are other ways I learned, two different types of carbohydrates. There is a simple carbohydrate and there is a complex carbohydrate. The simple are the ones like natural sugars, white breads, some potatoes. Honestly, potatoes even could be classified under complex, but they do have a sugar content that is like simple, and it goes straight to my husband's blood sugar. These are the foods that direct hit a sugar high on your blood sugar versus the complex that break down over time. These are usually the more fibrous foods. A few examples are beans, dried beans like navy beans, pinto beans, black beans. These are your complex. Yes, quinoa and brown rice. Those are complex carbs. However, not all complex carbs act the same with every diabetic either. Some of those complex can be just as bad as the simple. How I work those complex carbs out, an example is a half a cup of navy beans. They consist of 23.7 grams of carbs. They have 9.6 grams of fiber, leaving your net carb of 14.1. And your sugar count is 0.3 grams. Now, this is not something I would put down in front of my husband in one eating, because this can tend to spike his sugar as well. How I work those type of carbs out is I will create a dish where it can be spread out in multiple ways between the two of us. Now, if I did this half a cup, I would take that half a cup and split it between us both. This lowers that net carb down even greater. Or I will add it to a dish like chili, where it gets broken down in a bigger span, and he doesn't get that full entire half cup in one sitting. I've learned to break down foods, and we share it with each other because I did take this journey with him. I found that it was extremely beneficial to me, being on the verge of pre-diabetic myself. So this is something I chose to do. It worked for me. I lost a tremendous amount of weight I needed to. It took me out of my range of danger zone as well. So I just decided to do this with him. I turn more now towards homemade foods. Yes, it takes time to do this, and I understand we live in a world of we basically don't have time, but in some things in life we have to make time for. There are ways you can do homemade and make it convenient for you by on the days where you have more time to cook. Create meals to put in your freezer later, creating your own convenient foods. And this way you can just go in your freezer, grab your meal, you can put it in your oven, heat to reheat it, and you have a fast food already made for you. In some of the fast foods that we used to like out here, like a hamburger or whatever, learn to make your own. Using real foods, I'm finding, are working so much better to balance my husband's blood sugar than if I were to get into the convenient foods. Now, one of our family members, she made me giggle. That was pretty cool because I am learning the same thing. These foods that are convenience in the diabetic keto version, when she stated the fact of frankenfoods, I totally get that. And I'm trying not to bust out laughing right now because these are foods that I've learned as I was going along, creating, making, such as making a substitute pasta that used these eggs and these other ingredients. And the experience in the end of it was, what in the world is this? It was unpleasant. It was just all around a no, please, no more. These are foods that I don't understand. Maybe some people can accommodate that, like substitutions, where we once were able to eat our pasta, we can no longer eat it. So we learn to substitute and I guess learn to accommodate ourselves to the new, such as going from regular pasta to spaghetti squash. These are things I can work with. We both can handle. We like spaghetti squash, so it works for us. Zoodles, which is spiral zucchini. This can work for us. So I love you for saying that. I really do. In about all around world of trigger foods, not everybody is going to react differently, and you got to understand that there are medications out there being treated for this, so that can tend to change a lot of things as well. There are many of us who are learning we can reverse type 2 diabetes, and I am finding this is working. My husband, again, I've mentioned this in videos past, where he started out with a 9.7 A1C. He is down to 5.4. His medications were reduced by half, and he was told by his doctor that when he returns in March, if we stayed on this path that we are on, we could totally have the possibility of removing all of his medications. What does that mean though? That means we cannot go back to the old lifestyle we once knew. We have to stay on this new lifestyle for the rest of his life to be able to control it ourselves. So don't ever think that once it's reversed that you can go and do back to what you used to, because that is not possible. I am learning that working with real foods is, in a sense of it, working out way better than trying to incorporate these new convenient foods and stuff. And being a homesteader, this is working. Please understand, and I very much understand, and it has been pointed out to me, everything, even homegrown vegetables, everything has a carb in it. We don't necessarily count all of our carbs. this would be extremely hard to do, and it can get expensive into doing too, but having a general idea, and yes, do your research. You know, I've done the same thing. I've done a lot of research, but in learning things, working with real food is so much more manageable. And we do not, and there are different levels of keto. Again, this word keto, in some way it frustrates me because it's going around in a big span, and it's causing a division that's kind of crazy, because originally keto is labeled with a high protein diet, a high fat diet, limiting carbs to 20 grams a day, and that can be very stressful on your body. I am not condemning anybody who does this at all. I can see it working, so I cannot condemn anybody either. But for us, it was taking a really hard toll on our body. We leaned more towards the low carb, which gave us more to incorporate, and yet it worked for us, with a limit for us between 50 to 80 grams of carbs is working on my husband's blood sugar very well. It is still a very healthy diet. We're able to incorporate vegetables and fruits, and it's making our bodies healthier in more than just blood sugar, but in all around nutritious value, where we can get our cholesterol counts to levels of normality. We can keep control of our high blood pressure. We can keep control of the blood sugar, and it's working. Our bodies are in better health than we have ever been, and we feel better. All around, we feel better. So in 7 months that I've been doing this, and I'm new, and a lot of our subscribers are new as well, I want to thank those of you who are with us, who have been with us many years. You also help us in this journey with your advice, with your testimonies, with your advice. I greatly accept and appreciate you just as well. This is a learning process, and probably can be a learning process for the rest of our life. But I am learning how to do this, and it's hard to talk about this in one sitting. It's easier for me to do examples like I've been doing through my cooking, and being a homesteader, having to change my entire pantry now. I'm also learning how to utilize what I grow, how to incorporate it in my meals, and finding out what works and what's not working. So therefore, these are the reasons. And yes, right now it's being called a pantry challenge, because I am, as a homesteader, on a pantry challenge, which means I am using what I preserved through the summer. I do this every year for a purpose. My purpose for doing my pantry challenge is, in the wintertime, my husband's income drops. He is a seasonal paving worker for a construction company, so I have to accommodate us for that, to be able to pay our bills, lower our groceries, and honestly, it's becoming a lot deeper than that during the prices that we're going through. So I will preserve my food through the summer and use it all winter, and I call that the pantry challenge. It's what I use, what I have stored up, until it's either gone or low enough to restock and recycle, pushing my food that I have remaining up front, using that first, and then putting my new food behind it. So when I'm doing my pantry challenge, eventually it may not be called a pantry challenge. It still is being utilized, what I do on my homestead. And to be all honesty, even as a homesteader, I cannot be doing everything self-sustainable. I do, just like everyone else, for many things, have to rely on the grocery store as well. Our meat, I have to rely, milk, cheese, products like this, I have to rely on the grocery store. So even in my pantry challenge, although it lowers my cost, and by just getting what I need, and that's it, it still lowers my cost to be able to still preserve what I can used on my homestead. All the other thing about my homestead is it's an all natural. It's real food I can work with, and the real food, in my experience of working with my husband, is coming out way better. I'd rather stick to real food and work with it than the convenient foods out here. Part of the real foods in working with the convenience is we choose to stay clear away from the fast food world. Where we live, we have an entire highway so overwhelmed with fast food. It's frustrating. It's extremely frustrating to me. And I will be honest, a lot of these places will not accommodate anybody with diabetes, because it just doesn't form into their menu. In a sense of it, I can understand that. What I learned to do is recreate my own fast food using real food and substituting with the foods, such as a bun. I can make a hamburger using real food and replace that bun, that high carb bun, into a lower keto bun that will work for my husband. And sometimes I can create, like I did a dish where I did a Big Mac in a bowl, where I eliminate that total carb bun altogether. And yes, it's like a salad, but it's a Big Mac without a bun, and it's in a bowl, broke down. So I've learned to recreate food like that. I've learned to substitute foods like a potato salad. He cannot tolerate a potato at all. We've tried it, and even in moderation, he just cannot tolerate a potato. So we substitute it with a cauliflower, and amazingly, it worked. We kept everything else. All we changed was the potato to a cauliflower, and it drastically changed his blood sugar level to a one that keeps within that range we're looking for. It was amazing, and one that he adapted with so quickly and loved it. As a matter of fact, he even requests it sometimes, which is amazing, because if you've seen my husband, and this man, he is 100% countryman. He is a meat and potato guy, and it really surprises me with some of the things he is graciously accommodating to, because he knows that this is life or death for him. And I am thankful for him to work with me. I'm also heartfelt to his pleas. And that came into listening to so many folks. You can have this, you can have that. He was willing to try it, but then ended up at the one point just saying, please stop. He couldn't take it. It was hard on his body. It was hard on him mentally, because it was setting him up to disappointments, to the point he really suggested, if it's going to be like this, I don't even want to eat anymore. Folks, that was a dagger to my heart with him. I love this man dearly. I want him to stay with me. So that I had to hear him too. I had to shut out the world and listen to my husband. And in listening to him, I also listen to you, because I get it. I totally get it. I'm the one who he depends on. He depends on me to help him through this. So I decided to make these videos and create this homesteading atmosphere that I'm doing now on these videos, to not only help him, but to help so many others, because this world can be so hard. This journey can be extremely hard. It can be so frustrating. It can mess with you mentally, physically, spiritually, but it doesn't have to be. So I will be the homesteader who deals with the diabetic, who deals more with real food than I will deal with the convenient foods. Again, I understand there are carbs in everything, but I'm finding the real foods work better, and that's where I'll be. So in this process, for all of you who are new, those who are with us pretty much know all of this that I'm talking about, but for those of you who are new, it's going to be a frustrating journey for you, but to be able to do what I am showing on these videos, please understand you have to find your trigger foods, the foods that will spike your sugar that you have to basically eliminate or break down so small that you can tolerate it. To me, it's easier just to eliminate it and then find a substitute that works for you, because the foods that I use still, again, might not work for you. It might trigger your blood sugar and rise it high. So even what I do might not be for you, because we are all different. But in the most sense, most can handle some of the ways that I do things too. So it's a very important, why I specified, even in converting recipes, even using substitutions, please find your triggers before being able to do this, because that is one of the key things to controlling your blood sugar, is finding those foods that sneak up on you and spike your blood sugar and keep you from progressing. So this is what trigger means. I am seriously hoping that this video helped you. We have an appointment this evening, so my video and my pantry challenge meal may be quite different. I'm trying to figure out something right now where I can be able to do this and not have to upload a video at midnight. So I will try to prepare something as far as a meal tonight for you as well. In the meantime, God bless you. I have farm work to do. I have some chores to get done. So I will see you again. Much love to each and every one of you. Again, I appreciate you dearly. If you like our videos, please like and subscribe to us, and we will graciously embrace you with a hug. Much love to you from Parton's Heritage Homestead.